There's another mic someplace. Does anybody know where I put it? Oh, well, we'll share. We'll share. So good morning again. Today we're going to do what's called a dialogue sermon on the meaning of work. And I'm going to interview Josephine about her work. She does a lot of really differently, thank you, Zach, interesting things. And some of them we're not going to talk about because they are confidential in nature. But I'm going to ask her the first question, and note, please, people, that we're going to imitate this session around our agape tables. So I'm hoping that you will also do a sermon in 3 parts around your table to each other. One is, what do you do as work? If you're unemployed, that's a kind of work. If you're retired, that's a kind of work. Whatever it is that you do, tell the other people at your table, and then connect what Frederick Douglass was talking about as systems of domination. Do they appear in your work in any way? If so, how? And obviously you can't go into the whole story there, but I'm betting you can go into some of it. And then finally go back to that scriptural text, which is amazingly written from the point of view of a beast of burden. It's written from the point of view of a donkey who says the yoke is easy and the burden is light. So the third question will be, what is easy and what is light about whatever domination or burden we carry in our work? So how do you spend your days?
Well, good morning again. As an assistant principal at a public high school in the downtown area of Brooklyn, I spend my days, working with young people, as well as working with the adults. My work with young people is probably more gratifying than working with the adults. I can say that publicly, it's fine. Because I get a chance to see a light go off when they have identified something new for them or affirmed something that they didn't think that they knew, but finally someone has affirmed that for them. So being able to work with them through their educational process, whether it's in a math classroom, currently I'm now doing participation in government. I don't think my principal really knew when he asked me to do that it was going to go this way. So everything that we do in Judson, we pretty much are doing in the classroom. They are finding their voice, and we will definitely be exploring this whole process of government and structure in a new way. And so I get a chance to do that on a daily basis. So that's my day-to-day. Month to month, I do, 1 weekend a month, I go down to Fort Dix, New Jersey, where I get a chance to do something similar to that as well. I'm not working in an actual classroom, per se, but I am still working with young people. I'm working with them to understand why they have raised their hand to join the military. I work with them to understand why is it that we do what we do to protect our country, and give them a piece of understanding for themselves that the work we do is good, and they should be proud of it. Because sometimes it's hard to see that forest through, the trees, and be able to see that what we do actually makes a difference. So being able to be their chief petty officer and a steward for them and giving them accountability as well as giving them good praise in terms of the work that they do, that is great for this country.
And I'll just say a word about my work also. It's fundamentally being a pastor and caring for people. And so right now I am carrying around especially a few people, Russ Trays and Alice as they go through cancer, and Scott Munson, who's getting over a stroke that he had, a minor stroke he had on New Year's Day, praying for him, being with him. Working with Gene and his family on what it means to be deported, what it means to a son and a daughter, to have a father gone, what it means to a family. And talking to Gene on the phone when the phone works between here and Haiti, and which it does sometimes. Wondering about how many of us, I think I've got a little name for us, who had a bad flu this year. or a bad cold. And of course, hearing that backdrop of the strong drumbeat of virus coming out of China, and hoping that we don't make too much of a fool of ourselves worrying about it, or blaming people for it, or whatever, but also knowing that as a pastor, I know what happens in a system when something like that starts to happen and creates more anxiety than's already there. Thinking about our older folk, thinking about Lori Moody, who hates to be mentioned but is having a rough winter. And then thinking about people who get called 3 times for an interview for a job and then get told no after all that work. And there are several of us. There almost always are. So I do that. I worry in a very positive way about Sunday morning, and really think from my vantage point at Judson, worship is the central thing that we do together. So I want it to be fun and beautiful every Sunday. And then the third thing I do is I behave as an executive director for a large non-for-profit. But that is very much work shared with all kinds of people. But that's another role that I bounce around. Obviously, I love the first 2 roles, and I could do without the third one. I'll stop there, but where's the domination? Where is Douglas's impatience? It's not gone, is it, in your work?
Well, what's interesting is because in my government class right now, we are grappling with the domination aspect of this current election and the sitting president. And I cannot say anything for my commander-in-chief in office, and I will not say anything against him in a public setting. But I will say that we are definitely challenging some of the structures that have been brought forth in these past 4 years. And young people are opening up and looking at that and with a new lens, which is great. But I also have to add that even as an administrator, I don't just look at what do I have to do to work with students from their educational point of view, but also from their social and emotional point of view, even for our teachers and staff. So I've had to go and do hospital visits and have prayer with individuals who are in hospitals, whether it's a staff member or a family member. Just Friday I did that. We have a staff member that had surgery that was routine, and then all of a sudden now she has an infection. So Friday we sat with her, prayed with her, and she should be on the mends very soon. But the domination in the form of the Department of Education, and I know there's some folks here that can attest to some of this, is you never really know who to point the finger at, because information just comes down from on high. And so it's a matter of you do it or you don't. Mm-hmm. And so the domination is this euphoric thing that happens, and all of a sudden you know that you're changing your curriculum, you're changing things in the school because someone said so. And we never really get to put a pin on who the someone says, because it's always going up the chain of, oh, it's this one, it's that one, it's the other. So the forces that be seem to be invisible to a degree when it comes to education. In the military, we already know who the dominance changes. Congress and the president, who is the chief commanding officer, says do it and it's done. So.
Interesting. I'll make a very brief spiritual answer to the question. The domination systems are inside us. We participate in a lot of junk we shouldn't participate in. Mistruth, untruth, never really understand how full and complete the grace of God is for us, never realizing how happy we could be. And so I'm always trying to get people to think ahead about how great life could be if you just stopped worrying. And then I guess I would call it deferred maintenance. Deferred spiritual maintenance, deferred physical maintenance. As Mbolo Mbue says in her first chapter of her new book, which is fantastic, she says, we knew all the time. in Cameroon, where it's set, that the oil company was going to do us in, and we didn't fight. We didn't have the capacity to fight. So it's an internal domination where we believe their lies, joined by external, actual domination that's always right there, next door. So, yoke, easy, burden, light.
The yoke is easy because I know the work that is being done, that I'm a part of, is good. And if it wasn't, I would stop doing it. So I rest my burdens because I know that going to work every day, I'm going to interact with young people that is going to make a difference in this country. And going to work in the military every day, I work with young people that's going to make a difference in this country. So doing that and understanding that as a ministry in itself makes my yoke easy. My burdens are light because I lay it all on the ground and say, if this is not the work that I will do, that will make myself be able to look in the mirror each day, then that's when I know I have to stop doing the work.
So you have impact, and you know you have impact, and you know what you do matters. And I pray that we all can have that feeling. I've sort of given up on impact. But, I mean, not really. I'm willing to try. I have a phrase that I use, and I used with Britt Fisher. Very few of you would know Britt, but he's 58. He has an 8-year-old daughter. He's Emily Fisher's oldest son. Many of you know Emily. He was a member here. And Britt is really sick with a brain tumor that has bled into his spine. And his 8-year-old comes to visit at 4 o'clock every day. It's all happened very quickly. It's been 2 months. And he probably will not, but medically, his life is coming close to an end. Maybe not. You never know. You always pray that they're wrong. And what I find myself doing is going up to Sloan Kettering and saying to his family who are standing by, Emily every day, his wife Melania every night, his daughter at 4 o'clock. I said, would you mind if I stood by uselessly for a while? And that is an easy yoke and a lighter burden when you realize you really can't fix some things. And when you get out of your own way, sometimes you can fix a few things. That's all. So, anything else?
That's it.
Amen.
Amen.
Let's go to your tables after we sing.